Hey guys, it's Miss Foley, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be using a Venn diagram. It's a big fancy word, but we've done this before in class, and I know in my class we were comparing and contrasting the book Ida Always and Henry's Freedom Box. So we pick two books and we decide how are these books alike and how are they different? So we have to be thinking, using our deep thinking. Get your shovels out, start deep thinking. We have to use deep thinking to decide how are these books alike and how are they different. So let's look at the two books that we're going to use today. We're going to use Welcome Home Bear, the book that Miss Brandt read to you earlier, and the book that I read to you called Black Bears. So on this side of the circle right here, we are putting all stuff that happens in Welcome Home Bear, things that are different than the story Black Bears. On this side, we're going to add what's different about Black Bears. And then in the middle of the two circles, we're going to put how the two books are alike. What is the same about these two stories? So let's get started and come up with some ideas about how these books are the same. So let's see. The first thing that I was thinking was, what are these two books about? They're both about the same thing. What type of animal? Right, black bears. So both stories are about, let's just put black bears. So both stories are about black bears. What else is the same about these stories? What are they both talking about? They're both focusing on where bears live, right? So where a bear lives, that's called its habitat. So these stories both talk about where do bears live? Habitat. Where do bears live and their habitat? We can come back to this about what's the same. Now let's start talking about what's different about each story. So start thinking, what do you think we could add that is different about each story? One thing what I was thinking was, are they written by the same person? No, they're not written by the same person. This story was written by Sung Na. And this story was written by Joanne Mackin. So they're both written by different authors. What else? How many animals did you see in Welcome Home Bear? And what kind of animals did you see in the story Black Bears? Right, the story Black Bears, it only talks about what type of animal? Black bears. So only talks about black bears. But this story over here, it has a lot of different animals, right? It's not just black bears. That bear, he goes to different habitats and says, will this habitat work for me? Can I fit in with the birds? Can I fit in with the polar bears? So this one has lots of different animals. Lots of different animals. How else are these two books different? Start giving me ideas. Ooh, I heard somebody say this book, Welcome Home Bear, discusses lots of different habitats, but the story Black Bear, what is the only habitat it talks about? The forest, right? So lots of different habitats. But this story talks about forests. All right, what else can we come up with? Oh, you know what I'm thinking? What types of books are these? One's fiction and one's nonfiction. Which one is fiction? Which one is fake? Right, Welcome Home Bear. So Welcome Home Bear is fiction. And Black Bears is nonfiction. What else do we notice about Black Bears, the story Black Bears? If it's nonfiction, that book had a lot of what? A lot of facts in it, right? So we had facts, not opinions in this book. Okay, what else can we come up with? We have quite the list here. Let's review it. We know that in the story Black Bears, it's written by Joanne Mackin. They only talk about black bears. It takes place in the forest. It's nonfiction, and there's lots of facts. And in the story Welcome Home Bear, it's written by Sung Na. Lots of different animals. It's not just black bears. There's lots of different habitats that it discusses, and it's a fiction story. What else? What else do you notice about fiction and nonfiction books? It has to do with the pictures on the page. What do you think I'm thinking of? The story Black Bear, what kind of pictures are these? They're real pictures, right? So a real picture, that's called a photograph. So we have real pictures, and I'm going to put photos. On this side, though, are these photos? No, they're drawings. So we have drawings of animals. What else do we know about these two stories? We know that one's fiction, Welcome Home Bear, and we know that one's nonfiction. So what are the two bears? One is like thinking something. Welcome Home Bear, why is he going to all these different habitats and looking for a new home? Right, he's unhappy. He thinks he's unhappy with the forest. He's like, I don't know if I really want to live here. So the bear in this story is unhappy and looking for a new home. But what about the bear in this story? Is the bear in this story looking for a new home? No. So we can put not looking for a new home. And the bear likes the what? The forest. Good job. Okay, so what else can we come up with? Let's make this a little bit smaller so I can add some more details because we're coming up with so much stuff. So, what do we know that's the same? Let's go back to that. We know that both of these stories talk about black bears and they talk about where bears live. What else makes them the same? Both of these stories start out with bears living where? Right, bears living in the forest. And where do both of these stories end with bears living? In the forest. Good job. So both stories start and end with bears in the forest. Good job. What else do we notice? Oh, you know what else I noticed? The black bear story. It talks about bears using their claws, little baby bears, and they climb what? Trees. What did it show in Welcome Home Bear when he went to go check out the bird's habitat? The bear did what? He climbed a tree. So both of these stories talked about bears climbing trees. So we can add that, bears that climb trees. All right, let's make this a little bit smaller and see what else we can come up with. We have a lot of stuff on here. We've come up with a lot already. So let's review what we're doing. This is called a Venn diagram. So on this side of the circle, we're talking about Welcome Home Bear. And on this side of the circle, we're talking about black bears. But in the middle, we're talking about how they're the same. What makes these two stories similar? So let's review what we have on everything. So for Welcome Home Bear, we know that it's by Sung Na. There's lots of different animals in this story. There's lots of different habitats in this story. It's fiction. There's drawings. And the bear is unhappy and looking for a new home. But in the story Black Bears, it's written by Joanne Mackin. It only talks about black bears. They're living in the forest the whole time. It's nonfiction, which means it's real because there's lots of facts. It has real pictures and photos. They're not looking for a new home. But what else could we add? Let's talk about the author's purpose. What is the author's purpose for writing the story Black Bears? Why did the author write this story? The author wants to do what? If the author is teaching us, they want to inform, right? The author is informing. Informing. What about the story Welcome Home Bears? What is the author's purpose? I think there's two purposes here. The author is teaching us, right? So informing, but the author is also telling us a funny story about a bear who goes looking for a new home. And does that normally happen? No. So the author's purpose here is also to entertain. We have come up with a lot of ways that these two books are different and these two books are the same. And I'm sure you have more ideas at home. So, this is an example of how to use a Venn diagram and discuss how two books are alike and different. I know you guys did such a great job on this, and it requires a lot of deep thinking. So, I'm so proud of you for working with me. Great job.